It is a COVID-Q vaccine calculator. So what I did was I put in my details. Let me find it here. Is it down here? About you, age. Okay, so let me populate this. So I'm gonna give up my age. I'm 43. No, I'm not pregnant. I'm not a healthcare worker. Were you? No, I wasn't asked to shield. Do you have any underlying health conditions? Now, this is the interesting thing for me, mate. So right now, it's supposed to ask for my weight as well. Did it not do that? So on here, if you were to do it on your mobile device, it'll ask you for what your weight is. And my weight is 21 stone. Now, I'm not sure whether I'm obese or morbidly obese. I think I'm morbidly obese. Now, if I just put in 21 stone, and I don't have that. So one of the pre-existing conditions is morbidly obese. If I don't put morbidly obese in, my vaccine will be coming in circa September's time, something like that. However, if I put
September,
yes,
September next year.
Yes.
Right.
However, if I put in morbidly obese, I'm looking March to April. So I'm kind of thinking if I can start smashing pizzas now, that's actually a healthier move to get to that morbidly obese. And then I can just dig it back. You know, I've got the vaccine. I can start being a bit healthier. What do you think?
Good idea. I don't know if I can recommend that, Shawn.
You sure?
I can see the logic. I can see where you're coming from in that. But yeah, I mean,
right that the so this is what he said talking about it, that the virus can fit through the mask. So the idea of the mask, and just look it up. I'm not going to get into a debate on the efficacy of masks, but every country in the world is taking them on because masks, and doctors will tell you the majority of them, and you may know somebody who would say otherwise, but the majority of doctors will say that masks will baffle and prevent that spread from going further. So yes, people will still get ill if you're around somebody wearing a mask.
Yeah.
But if you're around 10 people, then let's say of varying distances, you now have a better chance of infecting, let's say with a mask on 1 as opposed to 8. Whereas if you're not wearing a mask, that vapor is going to go further. I saw a really good video where somebody was spraying aerosol from behind a mask. And you could see that the actual plume of powder of air filament, I don't know what to call it, but the particulate, sorry, didn't go as far. So it's not about stopping you from getting it, and it's not about stopping everybody from getting it. It's about limiting the amount of people who get infected and passing it on. And that's all it is. It's not a cure. Yeah. It's not a 100% fix. But I appreciate the comment, Doc Connector. I really do. Me personally, that's not what the majority of doctors, and 100% of the doctors I've spoken to, which to be fair is 2, those doctors say, yeah, masks will help limit the transmission of the disease. It won't stop it. So you're right, but we want to limit the number of instances people are getting it. It's the same reason you cover your mouth when you sneeze. You're not going to stop everything with your hand. Your hand isn't going to do anything as far as stopping it. It's going to prevent it from spraying all over God's creation. And what this does is it prevents you from breathing and spreading it everywhere. I mean, that's my understanding anyway.
Yeah, that's the same as my understanding. I don't think we're in disagreement with what's being said, although I don't have anything to back up whether Dot Connector, how legit their claims are or aren't. But they make sense to me too, and I don't think either of us are stating that they're a be all fix all. But it's just something that's just going to lessen the spread to a degree, and I think it's quite obvious as well from a personal perspective that oxygen deprivation, yeah, for sure. I think if you have breathing issues, I can imagine that being a real issue for people.
Yeah,
I think
it's fair.
I don't like being in, I went shopping a few months back, and I hadn't been for a while. I'd been stuck in the house for so long, and I went into the city centre, and mate, it was so uncomfortable having that mask on constantly and being around people. And I could feel like a shortness of. I didn't like it. It made me feel anxious. Is what it was. So again, I'd like to think I'm in relatively good health overall. So again, there's people that are obese that aren't fit and healthy and having to wear masks. I can understand that being an issue for people, or people that have had panic attacks previously. I don't imagine they're very good from that side, at least bringing that out. But Lou as well, she's a nurse and she's had issues with the actual face mask because again, I find it difficult going into a shop for half an hour or whatever
Mm.
it is. She's got to wear one all day. That's all, and she's walking, moving around. She's got to wear one constantly. I was developing a rash around her face, exactly where it was, and
Yeah.
they've even got a term for it now, maskitis, or it was something like that. It's
Is that
like
the official term?
I think I butchered it. Lou would be laughing watching it, but it was something not a million miles away from that anyway. So again, we're not here. Well, I'll speak for myself. I'm not here to state that masks are the be all and end all. And I think that there should be just a healthy balance of knowledge on this, that they don't prevent everything. So people shouldn't be getting up in arms of people walking around without wearing them outside. You know, if you're walking down the street and not wearing a mask, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think if you're going into a closed facility, like, or a shop or anything like that, the mandate is we should be wearing them as it lessens the spread. But I think it's fair to say that that can still get through. It's not going to stop them. They're bloody uncomfortable. There are other side effects, I think, albeit on the minor side, and it probably outweighs it wearing them for the time being.
Yeah, and just to, I'll get to that point in a second. I think because I think I want to. My sister works in a theme park in Florida, and she wears a mask. She has to 8 hours a day. She has to for her entire shift in Florida. And she said it's for the most part. She said the people that I work with are fine. You know, they got used to it. It's we get some rash. You know, we get some stuff around the face. We have to make sure we're washing it. She's like, it's just uncomfortable. It's not a big deal. And I think, you know, when you look at instances where there is oxygen deprivation, it's very much going to be down to, I'm sure if there's people that have, you know, let's say asthma or they do have breathing issues, that is going to be something they have to consider. And both the UK and the US government have things in place for people that can't wear masks. Now, there's some misunderstanding because it's quite a confusing topic. But I don't think when you look at the detriments of wearing a mask, I think you're talking a very small percentage of people, and for the most part, it's not an issue. I mean, before this, doctors were wearing masks that had less room for air to go through, less. So their ones, the N95 masks, are less, I guess, permeable, and they wear them every day, all day. So the doctor, the one friend I know, he's an ER doctor. He said, I wear masks nonstop. It's not a big thing to me. You just need to make sure you're washing the mask, and it's uncomfortable. And it's just something we have to deal with. But just the next comment, fear and stress cause the hormonal cortisol to be released, which lowers the immune system. I'm sure that's true. That sounds, I think if you look at not just, I can identify with that from an anxiety perspective, because I've had anxiety make me feel physically ill. I've actually, you know, been not just ill, but out of work ill because of anxiety. And I'm sure there's a link there with that. But I don't know that necessarily addresses, you know, why we shouldn't wear masks. I think
I agree with that.
Yeah, I think when you look at masks, it's an individual thing to a degree, but the reasons for most people who are kicking off on those viral videos online are not people that are having to wear them enough where they're getting bacterial infections, don't have asthma, or don't have any pre-existing conditions that cause them to, you know, have any oxygen deprivation whatsoever. So I think for most people, it's just a matter of, if you want to be near people, you want to go out in public, masks, the only thing they'll do really is allow people and businesses to stay open longer. That's where I don't connect this. More people wearing masks means more businesses can stay open, because the data is pretty clear that countries that have adopted mask wearing policies are seeing lower infection rates. The US is one of the few countries in the world that's making it into a political issue. A doctor recommendation a medical recommendation from doctors has become a political issue. And the US is just out of the off the spectrum with their infection rate. They're pushing 300,000 cases a day. And it's something my parents are nervous about. You know, they're having to deal with living in a world where if they go anywhere, you know, there was a video in LA just the other day. It was just yesterday. There was a video from a news helicopter where people were trying to find parking in a busy mall. So the mall is packed for Christmas. So there's people that are going to be in and out of that shop. And I have to believe that masks are helping mitigate some of that spread, so it's not just exploding all over the place. But again, I'm not a doctor, and Doc Connector, you may very well have more connections with medical professionals. If you're still listening, Doc, would you refuse to wear a mask, or are you comfortable to wear a mask? I'd be curious to know what your point of view is. And again, I'm not. Sorry, go ahead, mate.
No, finish up, Shawn.
And I'm not giving anybody shade who can't wear a mask. The only thing I would question is the people that are giving shade to masks, how many of them have actual reasons to give shades to wearing masks? If it's just that you don't want to, then what is it about the doctor's recommendation? So do you not agree with what doctors are saying in general? So Doc Connector is saying some doctors don't recommend it. Are they not recommending masks to the individual? Or are they saying that as a whole, we shouldn't wear masks because there's going to be more instances of medical problems from people wearing masks? So maybe there's data that we're going to find out that is going to change the mind of most doctors in the medical profession. Who knows?
Yeah, I think it's interesting to kind of see Dot Connector's text replies and comments and your own. He's just coming back in, so I'll let you finish up with that, Shawn.
And where do you live? Are you in the States? Or are you in another country outside of the States? Are you in the UK? Never worn a mask. So would you, if let's say, so is it a medical problem for you to not wear a mask? So do you choose to not wear a mask, or is it more of a statement that you think it's less healthy for you to wear a mask and there's no negative? So I've only seen 20 people wearing masks.
Yeah, and Dot Connector, if you were in the UK and the US where they legislate for wearing them going into shops, would you out of principle not wear one? Or is it just the fact that where you're based, it's not required? I live in Sweden. Okay.
It's interesting. From USA originally. And Sweden, they're I think you correct me if I'm wrong on this. They're changing their policy because they were going with herd immunity piece, and now they're starting to add some restrictions. I don't know that masks are in place.
Yeah, I think it's also Sweden's a big country, and people are drawn to Stockholm when they think of that, and I think that's a little different. They have widespread. I think they're having wider spread issues now. And the virus is working up more north, but where Lou's family are based, which is higher up in the sticks, I mean, the populations are so small, and you have to drive hours to get to a small town. It's a very different culture there.
Yeah, but I think too that's a good point to the way Sweden's laid out. And so just to be fair, he has asthma, and I think every right to be conscious about not wearing a mask, because that you don't want to put yourself in a position that you're giving yourself an asthma attack. You've never seen an infected person. I think when you look at, and even in the UK, I guess the layout population wise does impact how you have to behave. So in areas like, let's say, Montana, where houses are really spread out, population density is quite low, the instances of interaction are a fraction of what they are in New York City. Yeah. So the more you are forced to be in close proximity with people, the more you're going to have transmission. It's a virus. I think everybody agrees that it's a highly transmissible thing. I don't think most people are going. Yeah, I don't think most people are going to argue the World Health Organization's data for deaths or infections. I think you can argue about what China. Yeah. So I mean, we can argue here and there that there's differences in numbers or how people are reporting them. But it is a problem, and I don't think any government wants to continue doling out money to people to not work, and nobody wants to see the economy go to shit. Even if somebody were to come up with a conspiracy theory to say, I want to see this happen so that Pfizer can win a big contract. There's for these countries, the Pfizer and Moderna aren't going to be the be all and end all of the economy. The economy is going to suffer no matter how well Pfizer and Moderna do.
Already has, and if we fix everything today, there's some damage that's already been done that's going to take some while to unfix, and we're not out of the woods yet. So the damage is still being done, and we're not sure what the after effects will be of that. I think your point is very valid, and I really appreciate Dot coming forward.
Thank you, mate. Appreciate it.
We really appreciate having contrasting views on this channel. We really promote that. I think you've just got to look on it a case by case basis. This is where you come into difficulty when you go down the binary route, when something's right or wrong. Masks are right or masks are wrong. No, there is no right or wrong. You can. I think Dot is spot on that there are certain situations and certain health requirements where a mask could actually exacerbate other issues. The thing that kind of got my goat, I was speaking to a friend about it recently, was that, look, COVID is not the be all and end all in this world. This is what I think people are getting lost in, that somehow think that we need to avoid COVID and there's nothing else going on. It couldn't be further from the truth. There's people with cancer. There are people with other really serious, more serious issues. They have mental health concerns that far outweigh what could happen with COVID. I'm not underestimating the potential that COVID has on the population.
Yeah.
That's kind of speaking for itself. But we're very narrow-minded with it, and a mask does prevent, or not prevent. The mask does limit the amount of spread that can be done. I think everyone can acknowledge that fact as well. But a mask can also create some issues, and we've discussed a few on what Dot's suggesting.
Yeah.
We just have to look at each other as individuals and look at our circumstances and weigh up what is right for us. I think when you're in crowded areas and you're going into someone else's premises, it's you might feel fine about not getting the virus, but that other person may have asthma like that. They may have other underlying health concerns, and I think as a fellow human being, we should get uncomfortable and get through and wear a mask to try and help prevent the spread as a default. And for those that have underlying health issues where a mask is not great, well, if you really can't wear one, then you should just avoid putting yourself in that position for the time being, I believe. But it's not a straightforward, just from my explanation there, it's not a straightforward thing. There's a bit of gray in this.
Yeah. And saying overall deaths are predicted to decrease this year from last year to the USA. I hope so. And I expect there's a few things at play here, because there's going to be a point where a lot of people are going to have had it, and they're going to have a level of immunity. And we are going to see those numbers drop. I think the vaccine will have a big hand in that as well. But the one thing that has always been true, and I've followed this and how it connected to the Spanish influenza. In March, I read about the Spanish influenza, and I read how even then they said that the cases tripled and quadrupled in volume from what they were in March, April, May, because of the cold weather that was rolling in. And sure enough, that happened. And in Spain again, the Spanish influenza, the following year, cases did eventually drop, but it wasn't until I want to say it stuck around it was a couple of years, but because we have these vaccines at an exponentially faster rate, I think we are going to see a much more rapid descend on people that have the who are dying. But also we're learning to treat it better. People were dying in the UK at a much higher rate in March, April, May, when we were chucking people on ventilators, and now the care as far as how they're managing those issues is getting much better. The US has actually done a really good job at keeping their death toll numbers down. And they've shown that their private healthcare hospitals are working to a very high level, whereas the UK has been surprisingly poor. Now, there's a lot of factors that go into that, such as the age of population. So Italy's death rate's quite bad, but they're one of the oldest countries in the world as far as average age. So there's stats, there's lies, there's damn lies, and there's statistics at the end of the day. So we do have to look at what makes up those figures. But I think you're right, Dot. I think we are going to see a decrease in deaths. But interestingly, we talk about, I think where people get passionate about is how it impacts businesses more than anything else. It's to what you're saying, Hugh. It's not a matter of people don't believe that we need to be careful around the virus, but we can't let the virus stop us doing our day-to-day jobs. And people focus a lot on the hospitality industry, pubs and restaurants. And pubs and restaurants, I went to a pub yesterday, and it was an incredible day. One of the best meals I've had all year. And I don't know if that's because a bit of recency bias on my part, because I haven't been out.
Maybe. Yeah,
it was incredible. But what I did note was when we have, this virus as it is now, we have a lot of businesses that are thriving also, as well as businesses that are going under. And I think it's a sad state of affairs for pubs. I don't think pubs should necessarily be open as they were, just going in and face-to-face chatting. I think there has to be some regulation, for the same reason you wouldn't open up a restaurant if it was near a flood zone or somewhere where there's going to be an avalanche. You don't just say, well, people can choose to take their risk. It's their business. They should be allowed to open up their building in an avalanche zone. You wouldn't do that. You would accept the fact that they would have to close. But there's restaurants and businesses around restaurants that are transforming. And I saw this yesterday. I wanted to share this with you. And I thought this was incredible. This is a bit of ingenuity. And I'll get to your comment again in a second there, Dot. I saw this yesterday sitting next to me. So what this is a and actually, let me take that banner off because it's no longer relative to what I'm talking about. This is a picture of a, you know, when you go to conferences, you get those fold out screens that have like your branding on it. So this company would have been damaged by this. This would have been, you know, their whole business model is on people going to conferences and unfolding these pieces of marketing to put behind the table. And what they've done is they've repurposed them for makeshift screens for restaurants. So this was next to us, and I thought this was incredibly creative. Whomever is working for this company needs a raise and a half. And this is the kind of ingenuity that I like seeing. There's restaurants by me that are making a killing right now by turning their business into you know, a very efficient takeaway of like high quality food. You know, they're delivering you know, food that you can reheat that's partially cooked. Or there's another restaurant that's you know, you're ordering direct and you're getting the incredible food that they're serving, and they're not doing well. I would say they're doing better if the restaurant was open, but they're finding a way to adapt and survive. And I think that's what it's going to take for a lot of these businesses.
Yeah, like all business in general, mate, isn't it? Things change, and you've got to roll with the punches, or you're going to suffer. I think the one, because I know you took the original comment down, that what led us into this, and I think what I wanted to do was kind of bring it back, which was regardless of where you stand in it, there is absolutely no justification for threats and violence or to anything, or abuse at anything that end. I think either way, like, you know, there are people that I've heard as well that have, you know, I think I mentioned it early on, with someone that was outside exercising, and someone actually said to them, "Where the fuck's your mask?" And they weren't even near them. I was like, to speak to people like that is an atrocity. Like, you know, so I think the way people are handling that, which I think the mayor did a good job of actually preempting by saying that, I understand people are broke, they're out of their job, they're worried, they're not of sound mind, you know, they're a bit more depressed or anxious, so they're probably acting a little bit more out of turn. I understand that, but still, I don't think that, you know, the recourse should be that we're therefore allowed to go and start threatening people and abusing people. I think we need to be better than that as a society. So regardless of where you sit on this, you know, wherever the extreme, that is not the answer.
Yeah. We'll get to your last four comments in a second thought. And I just wanted to touch on that. And I think how people are approaching this is very much a pattern of what we've been seeing over the last 2 or 3 years, where people are, again, setting up camp in their corner and impassionately arguing a point without knowing the full spectrum of what's going on the other side of the coin. So if I saw Dot and I were to say, "Why the fuck aren't you wearing a mask?" The second he says, "I've got asthma," I'm going to feel like an asshole.
Exactly.
I'm going to. So I think that's where we need to come to a bit. And just to follow up, you may be able to answer some of these comments on from this. Just 4 comments here. I haven't had a cold, flu, virus, or infection in the last 17 years since I started taking 9,000 milligrams of vitamin C powder daily.
That's a lot of vitamin C, by the way. And I know I just want to put a disclaimer out there. People have that. Anyone watching that just went straight onto it. You could even get the shits from that. So if he takes that and it works for him, that's great. But people that go up on vitamin C to quite a high level, there is a cost to it as well. But vitamin C in general is you have to get the bare minimum of that. You have to, and it's one of the. I think, again, we talk about masks, and everyone should be having the minimum levels of vitamin C, and probably having a little bit more than the minimum, but at least the minimum. And people should be having taking vitamin D. Those two are like, you really should. If you're worried about yourself, you should be having both of those bases covered. I wouldn't recommend that much straight in, but you should be taking vitamin C.
I read vitamin D vitamin D. So I read about this yesterday because Nick had some vitamin D, and I know Joe Rogan talks about vitamin D on his podcast regularly. And what I've read in a few different areas is you don't really need to take it when you're out and about during the summer, spring. But in this country, in Britain, you do. It actually said, and this was on the NHS site as well. Vitamin D is good to take supplements of, because of how low the sun is in the summer. You get a lot of your vitamin D from the sun. And you don't get enough, and it does promote. What did it say? You might be able to better answer that. Vitamin D. what it promotes. I think it's got a health component to it.
Yeah, immunity. It's like vitamin D has been explained by Dr. Rhonda Patrick, who was on Rogan's show, who Rogan is quoting. It's Dr. Rhonda Patrick, so you can check her stuff out. But she believes vitamin D is not really a vitamin. It's more like a hormone. It has, you have a look at the effects of vitamin D on the body, the benefits of having it. So it's an absolute no-brainer if you're in somewhere like the UK or in Dot's case in Sweden, because he'll be coming to the time of the year. I don't know whereabouts he's in Sweden, but if you go up north, you might actually have permanent darkness, and the middle you'll get a very short window of light. So vitamin D, you need that, or you need to have some light therapy to make up for the levels of vitamin D. If you don't get that, you can be in a lot of trouble. You'll be susceptible to catching a whole host of things, and COVID just being one of them.
So just a few other comments coming in. Also, kombucha repopulates gut. Sorry, I think I jumped over one. Kombucha removes toxins from liver to clarify. So a lot of this stuff, I don't know that we can comment on. You may have heard of this. Yeah,
kombucha is great for you. Yeah, you look at the reports on it. I don't think I've ever come across anything that was negative about it. It's just to build up your gut bacteria, which again is your second brain. And gut health is something that's another underknown issue for people's health in general. You can have a whole host of issues, and if you spend the time to have a look at your gut flora and you spend some time to feed in the good bacteria, look after your gut health, it can transform your health altogether. So it's and people with gut health issues can have issues their entire life and still be healthy, but that it can wreck everything. It can make or break you.
So I'll read the comment, but I want to put a disclaimer out there that, and there's no disrespect, Dot. I just want to make it very clear that when we take a look at making comments on, let's say, terminal cancer patients are given 100 to 300,000 milligrams and are cured, I'm happy to read the comment, but I would also stress that anybody reading this needs to speak to a doctor about any sort of cure or any treatment that they're undertaking. And I respect that you have an opinion on that, but I don't want people to watch this and make a determination on their situation without speaking to a doctor. Everybody's position is different. I've not heard about that with regard to, people getting vitamin D, vitamin C, and being cured. So I'm not going to go too far down that road, but I'm happy to read the comments. I just want to throw that disclaimer out there.
Yeah, I think that's fair. When you say I don't think it's that much, I do for someone going from scratch anyway. I don't think it's unhealthy, but I know, put it this way, I've actually upped my doses of vitamin C before and I've shit myself. So, and that is a common thing. That might just be me, and it's not the end of the world. It's not the worst thing that can happen to you.
Yeah.
But if you have a look at the negative, I watched a documentary that was reading. Do you know what it was? It was Bigger, Faster, Stronger, which was talking about the steroids, the use of steroids, good and bad things. And it was a really interesting documentary. You'd probably like, Shawn. And they read out a whole host of these negative health effects. And they said, "What do you think this is?" And you're like, I don't know. And it said vitamin C. So it reeled off, if you have too much vitamin C, there are actually downsides to it. But you definitely need to get your base, because if you're ill or under the weather, vitamin C will help at least limit that, or in many cases take you out. It will prevent it altogether. So it's definitely worth it. And I am aware that vitamin D does help the absorption of vitamin C as well. Vitamin D is a wonder vitamin. It does a whole host of things.
So, and last comment from Dot is not permanent darkness here. Up north, they have it. And yes, I'd love to go really far north, where I know more so for the daytime thing in Iceland. They have a midnight or a midnight golf tournament they do when it's all day daylight. I'd love to be able to go up and do that. That would be incredible to play in a golf tournament at 2 a.m. in daylight. That would just be such a cool thing to do.
I want to share this with Dot as well as yourself, Shawn, but my other half is Swedish, so she's it's like the center of Sweden, which like we in the UK, we class people in Manchester like up north when it's really in the middle of England. Well, she gets the same thing. So she's classed as a northerner, but it's actually, if you looked at the whole country, it's a very long country. She's about halfway up it. And they, having been witness to it as well, they have permanent sunlight in the summer. And that was weird. It's not like totally bright. It does come down. It's like an evening, maybe like maybe in another like half an hour outside. You know,
Mm.
you can tell it's dim, but it's not dark. It's there's light out, and that was very weird, Shawn. So,
Yeah.
um, I didn't like it. I like my nights. I like to go to bed in a dark room. So
Yeah.
that was very strange. I've only experienced it once as well, but I, you know, in those countries as well, you've got the flip side, haven't you? I would
Yeah.
hate it to be permanently dark in the light. I'm glad that Dot doesn't have to go through that. I can imagine. I think, again, this is anecdotal, but Lou said I think the suicide rate is supposed to be pretty high when it's
Yeah.
really high up with Sweden, because it's not. I don't think it's really healthy for us humans not to have some sun.
That's something that I think. Well, my wife, she openly struggles with. I guess the winter blues. When you start losing that daylight, you work from, it's dark when you get up and it's dark when you finish work, and it's terrible. I want to transition to our last few bits, but the one thing I did want to share, one last thing on the COVID thing is, well done to the UK on getting the vaccine up and running and going. My wife's Nan had a vaccine this last week, so we're going out. So it's going. Yeah. But my wife shared this with me, and I thought it was funny. Hugh, I have a strategy on making myself better, and I think you will, of anybody, be really on board with this idea. So I'm going to share what I found, and I think I sent this to you earlier in the week. It is a COVID Q vaccine calculator. So what I did was I put in my details. Let me find it here. Is it down here? About you, age. Okay, so let me populate this. So I'm going to give up my age. I'm 43. No, I'm not pregnant. I'm not a healthcare worker. Were you? No, I wasn't asked to shield. Do you have any underlying health conditions? Now, this is the interesting thing for me, mate. So right now, it's supposed to ask for my weight as well. Did it not do that? So on here, if you were to do it on your mobile device, it'll ask you for what your weight is. And my weight is 21 stone. Now, I'm not sure whether I'm obese or morbidly obese. I think I'm morbidly obese. Now, if I just put in 21 stone, and I don't have that. So one of the pre-existing conditions is morbidly obese. If I don't put morbidly obese in, my vaccine will be coming in circa September's time, something like that. However, if I put
September next year.
Yes.
Right.
However, if I put in morbidly obese, I'm looking March to April. So I'm kind of thinking if I can start smashing pizzas now, that's actually a healthier move to get to that morbidly obese. And then I can just dig it back. I've got the vaccine. I can start being a bit healthier. What do you think?
Good idea. I don't know if I can recommend that, Shawn.
You sure?
I can see the logic. I can see where you're coming from on that, but yeah, I mean,